Hi, I'm Maria Theoharous or Velosos on social media. You're listening to So Organised Style podcast.
The joyous thing is now that having been around for 50 years that we're intergenerational. So we do have teachers that are now bringing their grandchildren and reminisce about the days where they used to visit reverse garbage and the sorts of materials they used to pick up. And now they're bringing their grandchildren to introduce them to the world of reverse.
That's Kirsten Junor, the CEO of Reverse Garbage, located here in Marrickville, Sydney, Australia. Reverse Garbage has been operating for 50 years, so grab a cuppa and listen to Kirsten now. Kirsten, thank you for coming onto the podcast of Sober 50 today. I'm really pleased that you've given me your time.
Thanks, Maria. It's great to be here.
Now, for people who don't know, Kirsten Junor is the CEO of Reverse Garbage, and this year it's the 50th anniversary.
Yay.
Yay! It's wonderful. I know that there are other similar types of organisations around Australia. So, Kirsten, talk to us about Reverse Garbage.
All right. For those who don't know, it's very hard to explain reverse garbage, but we were started by teachers and community 50 years ago. And Marrickville in Sydney's inner west was very different back then. There was a lot more light manufacturing and industry local. These teachers started rescuing these materials from heading straight to landfill. And they could see the benefit for that in a few ways. They used them as beautiful open-ended resources within their classroom. So they had a different perspective on how they taught. It was cheaper for them to rescue these materials and use them within the classroom. And the environmental benefits, keeping things out of landfill for as long as possible. And that is still, and I'll probably touch on that a lot as we keep chatting, but it's still at the heart of what we do every day here at Reverse Garbage. 50 years on, we still collect materials from light industry and commercial discards. They've moved slightly further out from Marrickville. We're still in Marrickville, and we still have a really strong education arm to what we do. That has slightly pivoted from being traditional classroom education more into advocacy around reuse and its place in the waste hierarchy. That's probably happened in the last 5 or so years, that we've gone more into that advocacy role as well as our educational role. To create a picture of reverse garbage when you walk in, it is colour and movement on a massive scale. We rescue everything from Hessian sacks to buttons to the negatives from gasket manufacturing to what we call alien brains, from plastic extrusion through to material offcuts, through to jars of screws. The best way, if we don't have it, you don't need it at Reverse Garbage. And, another phrase that comes up quite often is, I don't know what it is, but I got it at Reverse Garbage. And our customer base is as diverse as the donations we receive. So we have everyone from students, educators, builders, crafters, artists, DIYers, hoarders, film and television, community theatre, collectors. You just never know who you're going to talk to on the floor.
The day that I visited Reverse Garbage, there were people who were shopping for whatever their needs were.
Yes.
I mean, it's a fairly quiet area, but very colourful. And then as we were leaving, there was a lady who had pulled up and she was taking out these containers, these plastic containers from the back of her car. So I just imagine that there are things coming into reverse garbage every day and things going out of reverse garbage as well.
So we rescue between 4 to 6 tonne of materials per month. All right. And that's from just one little space in Marrickville. And we know that we managed to sell that amount because otherwise, Maria, you wouldn't have been able to walk into our warehouse when you visited. So we know that we have that amount of turnover. It's funny, some things you think, are going to fly out the second they get here, and they'll stay, and maybe they're here for a few weeks and then all of a sudden everyone's onto it. There's this really interesting zeitgeist that sometimes goes around. You can have something in one spot, move it 2 inches, and then suddenly it sells. There are trends, there are fashions. People used to really want records. They don't want them so much anymore. Fabric is always incredibly popular here, and trims all sewing types things. Furniture is harder to move at the moment. I think everyone's downsizing into smaller apartments. So those big sort of from the 1980s back, those bigger pieces of furniture just aren't fashionable or harder to fit into your lifestyle. It's interesting watching the trends of what people actually want and, choose to reuse.
I know other people who don't sew, but they do woodwork. They might be, as you said, DIYers, whether it's inside the home or outside the home.
Yep.
And every day when I look at the Facebook posts, there's something there for everybody.
Yeah, the word tinkering sort of sums up reverse garbage, I think. There's always people out the back rummaging. And I think that's the absolute joy of reverse garbage, that we're sort of ordered, but we're sort of not. We encourage rummaging, we encourage touching of things, having a look, because you don't know what's buried, unbelief under.
Mm,
So persistence definitely pays off. Sometimes, if there's been a customer on the floor for a couple of hours, I do remind them that we close at 5, or I'll see them here in the morning. We do have people that come every day. I think we really did 50 years ago invent FOMO, the fear of missing out. I've got people that I'm sure they think they're just going to find something they're going to sell and retire somewhere, but some little gem hidden somewhere.
that would be their dream. You always get something from visiting reverse garbage, even if it's just inspiration for doing
Yeah,
something else when you get back home. So I really appreciated all the color and sort of movement that there is at
yeah.
reverse garbage.
I'm glad you feel that you get inspiration, because I think that is what we're all about, all right? To encourage people to see things in a completely different way. And that's what our education programs are definitely about, is seeing things differently, seeing the potential in things. It may not be used for what it was originally intended. I
Yep.
remember, back at our old space, we had this huge tub of, the 1970s plastic molded drawer handles that were countersunk into the timber. And, every kitchen had them. And obviously they didn't sell somewhere. And we had them. And they sat there for a couple of months, nothing much happening with them. And this guy came in, and I'm not kidding, bought 3 Hessian sacks worth, because he was never going to see them again. And he was a model car collector. So Matchbox cars.
Mm.
He'd bought one, taken it home, and the car's perfectly fitted over the little handle. He'd turn them upside down, and he could suspend them on there so that the tires wouldn't go flat when they were just sitting hard on the surface of his display unit or whatever. He was as happy as. So I think you've always got to come into, I reckon, anywhere, but most particularly reverse garbage, with a completely open mind. If we don't have it that day, you've got to keep coming back and keep your mind open and just wait. It will turn up. You've got to just be opened and look at things when you're driving around, when you're at another op shop, wherever, and wait for that moment. And it's a joyous moment. Yay, I found it. I know exactly where it's going and it works. Rather than just rushing out and buying new, it's worth the wait.
At the time when reverse garbage started, so 50 years ago,
Yes.
what was the thinking at the time?
We're very fortunate that Phil Nanloe, who was one of the teachers that helped
Yep.
found Reverse Garbage, he volunteered for Reverse Garbage for 12 years, left to have his career and family, and in the last 10 years has been back on our board. So I think Phil is very much about the education and using these resources within the classroom. And it is for that open-minded, non-prescriptive materials that show possibility. So it's not just using something that's come out of a catalogue and you buy 30 of them and you use them in your classroom and then you do the same the next year. I think
Yep.
the materials dictate the way you teach and the benefits. The overlying message is to look at things differently, and where did it come from? What was it originally used for? How can we use it now? And then how do we dispose of it sustainably and ethically? They may not have structured it that way when they were teaching back in the 70s and 80s. And I've had chats with Phil about this, that it is about using the materials in a classroom in a creative way creates conversations, enhances the in learning environment and makes it joyful and different and interesting.
Now, what range of teachers come to reverse garbage to look for resources?
The joyous thing is now that having been around for 50 years that we're intergenerational. So we do have teachers that are now bringing their grandchildren and reminisce about the days where they used to visit reverse garbage and the sorts of materials they used to pick up. And now they're bringing their grandchildren to introduce them to the world of reverse garbage. So that's really lovely when that happens. I don't think it's ultimately changed. It is, as I said, it is intergenerational, and that makes it lovely. We have everyone through early childhood through to tertiary and homeschoolers, so early childhood, primary,
Yeah.
tertiary, university students, but also lecturers. So I know many lecturers, at the design schools, the architecture schools that refer their students to us, NIDA, UT, they all come here. Film and television, animation students and teachers. But whether the
Yeah.
students go on to become animators or whatever they were saying, it doesn't matter because it gets in under your skin and
Mm.
you've been, introduced to this world. And, many people come back, oh, look, I used you when I was at uni. I'm not doing that anymore, but I still love coming back here. So it just gets in under your skin, really, doesn't it?
It does. And I know from a sewing person's perspective, which is mine,
And mine.
I visited, yeah, you've got all the notions, various types, a huge range of buttons, fabrics of all ranges, and even the vintage sewing patterns. They were hidden. They weren't
Yeah.
hidden. You've got to
No.
look for them, right? Which is what you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't make it easy for anyone.
And that was just a really quick visit, too.
Yeah. You have to have that open mind, as I've discussed
Mm.
before. But I think when you're limited in your choice, it makes you more creative. So although we do have a huge selection, you can't go in and say, I need to get X for X. You got to think about getting, I don't know, K for M. It's the materials dictate the project.
So the hard question is, are there any materials that you would not have in reverse garbage that you would not accept?
We are capacity driven, as any space is. We can't just take everything we're offered. There's only a couple of things that we won't take, and it's MDF and chipboard timber. Couple of reasons. The flat pack style furniture, once you've put it together and undone it, it's lost all its integrity. You can't re-drill into the chipboard. And if it gets wet, we've all seen it when you're driving around and people have
Mm.
put their kitchens out, it just expands. It's just bad stuff. It's also full of glues that aren't good. MDF we don't take a lot of, where I'm very pleased to see that a lot of props and film and television makers have pivoting from MDF, so medium density fiberboard, to plywood. We don't sell it again because of when it gets wet, it just and is unusable. It's full of toxic glue, so you've got to have the right extraction equipment to use it. We don't want to sell it to someone that's going to cut it up not knowing this. Someone said to me this morning that it's beautiful how everything is honored, in things are everything's welcomed with equal, oh, thank you. And someone walks out going, oh, I'm glad I found it. So everything's, yeah, here for a reason.
I know that, you're in a new space, but you've also got rooms where you can run workshops, whether it's indoor or outdoor. Is that right?
Yes, at our old space, we didn't have we were in a demountable and but here we were able to build two purpose built, all from reuse materials. We run our education workshops. We had 60 students in here learning about textiles, not so much the fast fashion side of things. That's another whole story, but the materiality of textiles. And at the end, they all got into teams, and we had this awesome fashion show outside where they'd all made each other's outfits working together. It was amazing. We designed these spaces so that we could have people on site We do go out to schools, but I think seeing reverse garbage in action and being able to wander around the warehouse is just as valuable as the lessons within the education space. All the materials that we use for our workshops are donated to us, so we don't buy anything new for our workshops. We teach without glue or tape, so you have to think about how you can connect things without just grabbing the tape or the glue. It's interesting within a class, there everyone's, oh, with that miss, can I have the tape? Can I have the glue? And it's like, nope. And then there's like a bit of, and then they get it and it goes quiet. And, and they're working away and they've got the principles behind it and they come up with amazing things. And the other thing I love is when you offer the same materials to a class, that everyone will come up with something completely different, even though they're working with those same, materials that would have ended up in landfill otherwise. So they get to play with stuff they just don't see anywhere else.
And it's probably materials that on a limited budget, you really can't afford to go shopping. But if you're in a workshop
Yep.
on site,
Yes.
you do have that ability to expand your thinking and use materials in that environment.
Often, oh, have you got this? I said, well, just get into the warehouse and have a look. I don't know,
Mm,
just think, what do you want it to do? What's it need to do? Get in there and have a look and you'll find something.
yeah.
What are we doing to celebrate our Big 5-0? So we kicked it off with walking up Oxford Street and we had a Mardi Gras parade. We were in the parade. That was amazing because we love Mardi Gras. The lead up to Mardi Gras, when everyone's coming in and buying materials for their floats, we have a chat to them about, what do you want? What's your float? Which float are you on? We'll wave. And then that's another fun time is watching the parade and playing spot the reverse garbage. But this year to walk up Oxford Street was really amazing. So we invited staff, and the theme was gold and reuse, of course. So we started squirreling lots of gold together and turned our truck into a birthday cake. And it was just so much fun. And then the icing on the cake, pardon the pun, was that they have community awards each year, and we won best costumes for the year. So that was a pretty awesome way to just kick it off, as it were, in March. We have been archiving all our photos and scanning them in. We got a grant from the Inner West Council to do that, which is amazing, so that they're all safe. We found great photos from the very beginning, black and white days. So having them scanned in, and we're going to have them up as a digital presentation on our website, is fantastic. We used to have a space out at the Casula Powerhouse, and
Oh,
I went out there to visit the local state member and took some old photos out to show them that. And so that has been a nice reconnection. And then on the 20th September, everyone, date for your diary, we're having a reverse garbage day celebration cake cutting. And that's coming together with some interesting panels. We want to do a history panel and a
mhm.
sustainability panel, local drag queen. We're going to do like a project runway, teams get together, dress one of your team members up and then walk the red carpet. I don't know, but that's the big day. I think we have to do it on a budget, and I know I'd love to have some, a street party but anyway, that's not going to happen, but it's going to be just as much fun.
It sounds like a lot of work, but it will be a lot of fun to celebrate 50
Oh,
years.
yes.
So, how big is your team at Reverse Garbage?
In our education team, we've got one program development coordinator, manager, and then one manager. And then we have a pool of awesome educators that work as needed. So in school holidays, very busy, and then June term time going out and coming here. So that's the education arm. And then in operations, we have, so it's about the equivalent for the permanent staff of 11 full-time equivalents, and then the pool of casuals. One thing that people probably don't know about reverse garbage is that we have a big social impact as well. So we work with the Department of Communities and Justice and have volunteers that work with us doing their community service orders. So that gives them, a safe non-judgmental space to do their orders. And
Yeah.
we also work with the Department of State Revenue for people in economic hardship that they can come and pay off their fines. For the Community and Justice, we've been working with them for over 20 years, and the Department of State Revenue for about 10 or 12. So that's a big part of what we do, as well as, and we also have other people that have volunteered with us that have ended up getting casual work. And we also work with schools for their Duke of Edinburgh Awards, and if they're doing work experience. So we have a lot of touch points into the community in one way, shape, or form.
The work that you do from reverse garbage to the community with the social impact, that's not really well known. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's almost sometimes when we start thinking about what reverse act garbage actually does and what it means, it's almost sometimes that the environmental impact, although it's huge,
Mhm.
ends up down the bottom sometimes in that level of importance.
We've met once, and you started to tell me a bit about how you got to be the CEO of Reverse Garbage.
I, s- I
What's
s-
the story there?
I still pinch myself. I just, yeah, I am so very lucky to work in an awesomely crazy, wonderful, colorful. It's just,
Yeah.
but that has its serious side. I have compliance to meet as far as a not-for-profit. We've got reporting to do. We've got rents to pay, people to. So within everything, but I think it's very much two sides. So when I started here, my not-for-profit journey started when I ran my own business in textile printing. So business partner and we were screen printing fabrics. We'd use a lot of dead stock, and it was very printing 3 meters at a time using paper cut stencils. It was incredibly time consuming, but it was great fun. And our kids were young. It was our creative outlet
Mm.
while they were young. And then I got a job at Dress for Success, another awesome not for profit that if you don't know about it, people look it up. It's amazing worldwide.
Yep.
And then I've been shopping at Reverse Garbage since I was about 10. My mum used to bring me over, and the role came up for the retail manager, and I applied and got that. I've been working here for 10 years now, and I use the word work loosely because, as I said, it is quite an amazing place. But when I'd tell friends, that I'd got this job, they'd go, oh, gosh, does Steve know? Because you're going to end up on one of those hoarder shows because, you're going to be taking everything home and we won't be able to find you. It's had the reverse effect on me. Something has to be really good for me to take it home now. I really consider, do I need it? Because you just see much, so much here just coming through all the time. A couple of years ago, they talk about environmental, anxiety. I had it big time. I was never going to travel again. I was never going to do this. I was never going to do that. And there's a lot of people online that you see are doing, I only now have this much rubbish each week or year and I'm living it perfectly. I don't believe them because no one can be perfect. So I've come to that realization that we can do what we can do really well, advocate and make our decisions count. And that's the most important thing because
Mm.
as individuals, no one person can slow down capitalism or the, consumption, but we can all have a ripple effect by our choices and explaining those to friends, visible mending, taking it out there in
Yeah.
the public and talking about it. And I think those are the important things that you can do, and just being mindful and content with what we have. And I think that's changed my outlook on what we do and how I live, because I really was getting so depressed about the state of the world. And 2 years on, the world's probably in a worse place. But I think my attitude is we can't do it all 100% of the time, but those things that we choose to do, you have to do all the time.
I think that's a really good concept to understand and get a grip on.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
go nuts. Oh, so
Oh,
yeah, so I haven't even, so I started as retail manager. I was given another title of creative director, which I think meant I was 2IC. I have never quite worked out what that was. But anyway, and then 3 years ago, the role of CEO came up and I applied and I got that. And, if you'd asked me 30 years ago, did you ever think you'd be the CEO of something? Well, ha, no. So I think, yeah, you just never know, do you? Got to be open to it. A bit like when you're shopping here. Just be open to anything really. And everything you do comes back to be useful, doesn't it?
it does. I mean,
Yeah.
you started going there at the age of 10. You're now CEO after living a life of doing a whole lot of other not for profit, but creative things.
Yeah.
So, it's a life well lived.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. So, for people who have never been to reverse garbage, what advice would you give them?
About visiting, we're open Monday to no. I would my advice would be start considering something that I've been talking about recently is it's not just the planetary resources we have to consider. And that's kind of what we do talk a lot about here at Reverse, because that's what we're rescuing. We're keeping things out of landfill for as long as possible. I want people to start thinking about the human resources. Now, I know robots are taking over a lot of manufacturing, but that's almost irrelevant because everything that you touch, you buy, make has had a human hand in it somewhere, whether it's driving it from the factory to the ship, whether it's, the person that sold it to you, everything has had an input by a human. So I think that's something we really need to start considering, and especially with fast fashion, that people aren't being paid properly. It goes back before even the manufacturing. It's the people that are growing the cotton or the wool that aren't getting paid properly. So I think it's starting to think about the human resources just as much as the planetary resources.
That's good. Thank you. Well, Kirsten, thank you for being on Sober 50s podcast.
Pleasure.
And I'm looking forward to the next episode of Reverse Garbage, because there will be one with some of the people who actually work there.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Kirsten.
All right. Thank you.
This episode of So Organised Style Podcast was both video and audio produced by me, Maria Theoharous, in my sewing room, with permission of Kirsten Junor, CEO of Reverse Garbage, sound by Knife on YouTube. Go to Reverse Garbage on all social media to take part in their 50-year celebrations that are coming up. Many thanks for the ongoing monthly support of the podcast Patreon contributors. Their membership enables me to create these podcasts, both video and audio, for you for free. Subscribe to So Organised Style Podcast, but with an S, not a Z, on all good podcast apps and on YouTube. Go back and listen to our free Sober 50 episodes on So Organised Style Podcast. Direct message Sandy and the editors at Sober 50 on Instagram to contribute to their ongoing posts and challenges the team promotes to the community. I look forward to joining you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.